So we're going to start the meeting in just a moment, but I did want folks to know, if you didn't check the back table, there is an application for this committee. We are going to start with the committee that was the homeless work group, which is who you see seated up here. But this livability, that's what we're going to talk about today, is how we want this to be structured. And we're going to have kind of an open discussion on that. But if you're interested in serving on this ad hoc committee, I would encourage you to grab one of these from the back table and start to fill that out. And it is noon, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Cool. And we're going to begin with introductions. And I think I'll go ahead and start. Stephanie Kilmer, and I am a co-chair of this committee representing the city of Coos Bay as a Coos Bay City Councilor. And then we'll just go down this way.
Sure. I'm Drew Farmer, Coos Bay City Councilor. I think I'm part of that tripart.
Make sure, remind them to turn their mic on.
Oh, yeah, make sure your mic's on now.
Andrew Brainerd, a Director of County Homeless Response Office.
Scott Cooper, Director of Alternative Youth Activities, and also on the Devereaux Center Board.
Stacy Dewater from Star of Hope.
Tom Ford from Harmony United Methodist Church, and also on the work.
Leslie, you can pull that microphone towards you there. There we go. We do have some Councilor Stevens online, so we want to make sure and use the microphones when we speak so that everybody in the audience can hear and everybody online as well. So we'll head this way.
Darren Coleman, the Coos Bay Community Resource Officer.
I'm Chris Chapiner. I'm the police chief.
Nicole Rutherford, the city manager.
And John Sweet, one of the county commissioners.
Christine Sylvester, Executive Coordinator in Administration, City of Coos Bay.
Councilor Stevens, did you want to introduce yourself, or you get the triple introduction?
Sarah Stevens, City Councilor for Coos Bay. Happy to be here. Thanks for making accommodations so I can be online.
And I'm going to go ahead and perfect. I was going to ask if we had a microphone that we could pass around and if people could just introduce themselves.
Amy Edmonds, citizen and City of Coos Bay.
Joanne Moss, the current president of the Community Coalition of Empire.
Amy Linder, I'm the building official and fire marshal for the City of Coos Bay.
Bree Laughlin, I write for the World newspaper.
Jim Behrens, a member of the Community Coalition of Empire, a member of the Board of Directors for the North Bend Senior Center, block captain for Radar Hill Neighborhood Watch, and also an advisor to OBAB, another nonprofit in the community, and a member of 15 Neighbors, which is a housing advocacy organization that's working up and down the coast.
Harper Thompson, Marshfield High School City Council Representative.
Calvin Strands, Chairman Eastside Neighborhood Watch.
Laura Urseg, Coos Bay resident and Director of Southern Oregon Coast Pride.
Kara Long, I'm here representing Coos Health and Wellness Prevention Department.
Joe Monahan, Best Western Hotel in Leah Talk Inc.
Shirley McAdam, Coos Bay resident and board member of Judy Ann Morgan Foundation.
I'm Kurt Magnuson, a resident of Coos Bay.
I'm Jackie Matthews. Some of you might see me on the streets of Coos Bay. I'm the crazy trash lady. Stop and say hello.
Gwyneth Strins, Eastside Neighborhood Watch.
Lucy Kendall, I'm just a resident of Coos Bay.
Craig Sauce, resident of Coos Bay. Major Dave Kaufman, Salvation Army.
Christy Markham, Salvation Army.
Eric Shermer, part of the Homeless Response Office.
Dean Lundy, owner of the Divine Nature Academy, the old Coos Bay Boat Building Center.
Don Flowers, resident of Coos Bay.
Renee Menkins, resident of Coos Bay. I'm on the board for the Friends of Public Health, and I'm a co-lead for South Coast Together.
John Meinig, resident of North Bend.
I'm Mary Crumley. I'm a public citizen of North Bend.
Kim Powder, resident of Coos Bay.
Mike Powder, resident of Coos Bay.
Brittany Buxton, Coos Bay Public Librarian.
McKinley Prado, Coos Bay resident.
All right, thank you everyone for being here. Christine, do we have like a sheet we could pass around and that people could write their name down and who they are, if they're a citizen or representative?
Absolutely, we can get that for you.
Okay. I couldn't write fast enough. Appreciate everyone coming out today. This was kind of born out of a couple of things. We have had the homeless work group that worked and was established until the city received a grant, and that homeless work group was made up of a variety of folks, as you can see, people affected by the homeless situation in Coos Bay, and also people who provide services. And we work together on, I want to say, probably 20 different types of actions and ordinances that we made recommendations to the city council, and then those were acted upon by the council. For example, one of those is the camping ordinance that is in place, and that allowed us to do, to meet the time, place, and manner stipulations passed down by the courts. So it was a very effective group, and as we were talking one day, I monitor a lot of the activity on the neighborhood watch groups, and I've met with several of you here that have also had concerns about some things that are happening that are kind of negative. And I said, well, let's see what we can do. I recommended to the mayor that we form an ad hoc committee that is specifically working on these projects, or could specifically meet the needs that we have in the community to deal with some of the issues that surface that are negative, such as litter or crime. And so that's where we are today. And so I'm going to turn it over to Nicole, and she can provide a little more information.
Your staff report. So what we're hoping today to kind of do is establish some of the topics that we would want to talk about in the future, and then beyond that also, who makes good sense to sit up here, and you might have some homework projects, just to go make sure we're bringing a breadth of information here in order to kind of inform future topics, as well as we're really good about discovering what we don't like, but what we hope in this space is we come up with some solutions that can address what we don't like. So homework might be, let's find out what we don't like, but it might also be kind of pulling what some options might be. So we have some preliminary ideas of who might best sit at this table. And I'd like to say we have some flexibility, but we do recognize there are definitely some experts, maybe, I don't know if that's the right word, who touch some of these concerns already, so they make good sense to be seated up here. I don't know if there's value in kind of sharing what that looks like, if you think, or... Sure. So our initial kind of run through was to... Obviously, we want to have some folks who are going to be making those decisions on implementation of policy and or ordinances, laws, that kind of thing. So we need some council representatives. I think we all acknowledge that the 3 tribes that are represented in our community are significant members impacting the way our community is. And so we'd like to get representatives from each of the tribes. We are looking to our service provider base. There are a number of service providers in this area doing a lot of different community things. We would want to have at least one of them represented here. This is where our flexibility kind of stands in. We're hoping to have 3 at-large There's nothing that gives you the right to sit here other than just being a member of this community and keeping 3 spaces open for that. We're hoping that we'll get a individual from the county sheriff's office, one of the commissioners. We also would like to have a business owner in the community. I think that brings a different focus of attention. We're hoping that our high school representative might have interest in participating, but if not, someone else who might have interest from this high school. We're hoping for a Coos Bay Downtown Association representative, also someone from the Empire Community Coalition and Eastside Neighborhood Watch. And then we're going to have some folks that work here at the city that are going to tell us, one of the challenges is we can come up with some great solutions, but are they something that city staff have the ability to implement? So we have to always be mindful of that if we have that ability to do so. Our hope is with some applications kind of within that kind of grouping, we'll get those and this will come before council, much like any other board does, and the full council will make those appointments. We have started an initial topics list, and I don't know how far you want me to, if you want me to just keep going. Yeah,
that's
okay.
fine.
So some of the things that we've just batted around here internally, and of course this needs to be informed by what you experience in your regular, everyday living and working in the community, but garbage is obviously probably one of those first things, and I would suggest, crime is also going to be one of those other things that are impactful in the community. I think in this group, we're going to learn some parameters we have to work within, and one of those is Martin v. Boise, which is a case that's actually pending review by the Supreme Court. That kind of sets some really firm guidelines around how cities, communities can address homeless individuals in our communities. It makes it challenging to find balance between both populations. So making sure we all are working from that same space, we all have that baseline information as we work up to find a solution is really important. Finding collaborative efforts between our mental health providers so that we're addressing the types of behaviors that are disruptive in our communities. We'll have a lot of conversations around why we're here, what are some of the things that are the pieces of the puzzle that are causing some of these homeless challenges, the individuals experiencing homeless. Mental health is significantly one of those issues. We're also probably going to talk about, and we've addressed some of this in the homeless work group, some of the structures, buildings, homes that need some rehabilitation. The homeless work group established the vacant property registration. Some out in public might refer to that as the zombie homes. But just making sure we know them and that they're registered, and who do we contact when we find there's an issue at that space. And so we want to kind of expand that idea into buildings and how we address those kinds of things. We are going to you're going to get sick of hearing it, but we are going to pound into everyone's head. If you see something, please say something. We can't do the work if we're not aware about it. We'd love to say we touch all spaces in this community every day. We just do not have the people to do that. And so we're hoping we have eyes and ears. You guys are all out there. If you see something, say something. I would caution that just with, we're going to do our best to get to it as quickly as we can. So continue telling us. If it didn't happen on day 1, it might not come to the surface till day 3, but let us know if you're still concerned about it. So I'm not really certain what the next idea was, but it says building asset-based neighborhood watch groups, and so hopefully we're going to add some depth to that I'm not able to add, but this focuses on the crime element, kind of sharing some information again. We kind of have some parameters. We know there's some challenges already there. So share some information, all focused on ways we can reduce property crime and kind of garner some community support. And then the last thing is whatever else you guys may bring to the table that's going to add to this list, that's going to help us find focus and momentum to make some change in this community we all love. So.
All right, thank you. I did want to ask my fellow counselors to maybe comment as well. Sarah, I think the Neighborhood Watch and the See Something, Say Something were a couple of passions that you had. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think we see some online neighborhood watch groups, but really what I am envisioning is, I know that we have a really dynamic East Side neighborhood watch group. I know there's one in Mingus Park. I'd like us to provide more information to neighborhoods and communities about how we build those and take care of our neighbors and help watch out for each other. And so, again, you know, not necessarily an online format, but actual neighbor to neighbor connections. And then secondly, the See Something, Say Something is, I think, was something that Chief Chapinar originally phrased, and I do think that there's times in the community when people see something and they think, oh, the police are too busy, or this doesn't rise to the level of attention, and that there are ways, you know, and that's not actually the case. We really do need to be informed about both concerning and nefarious things happening in the community, and providing information to the community about how to call into our non-emergency line and what's expected as far as police response and what types of activities we really need to be communicating to our police so that we can respond appropriately.
Thank you. Counselor Farmer.
So that, yeah, a lot of the items I brought up were encompassed in there. I think we saw a lot of value out of the zombie property ordinance. I like the name of it. Just in even proposing it, there were a lot of properties who were still owned by banks on the East Coast back from the Great Recession who basically forgot they owned it. I have no idea how they found out, but we hadn't even passed it. We were discussing it, and suddenly the banks wanted to offload the properties back into the market. So just even discussing items like that has an impact. And of course, Joanne's let me know there are properties that have fallen into this category again. So I think readdressing it would be very beneficial. And any conversation around it, I don't know how they know, but it seems to provoke response. So if it gets response, it's effective. The see something, say something, I want to highlight how important that is. Not just so city staff know, but it creates data. And I have worked a lot with the state and problems they have and problems they cause. And if you don't have data, they don't listen to you. Like I've had them want me to provide a study explaining why a rural couple where they both have jobs need 2 parking spaces. They do not understand, and they don't care to. So unless we have the data from people calling in that we can show up north, it's not going to be as effective. So even if you think nothing's going to happen, please call in so that it's in the database. And if we can show that it's taking us longer, we can apply to the state and say, this is the problem we have. We want the money you're giving other people too. So, yeah.
So I always forget to turn my mic on. I would like to open it up to the committee to talk about, and then we're going to open it up to the public and just kind of let that be the meat of our meeting. First of all, to talk about the formation of this committee and what you heard. How do you feel about kind of the setup that we have? Do you feel that that's enough, or do we need some other things that we don't have represented on that committee?
I'm excited, and I'm hoping that it's full out there every time that we do this as well. I think the fact that we're moving from just homelessness into livability opens it up, and I'm hoping to see more and more citizens as we continue.
Anyone else?
I mean, I already talked a lot, but I'll talk a little bit more. I would just allow people to know that this would be our format. We will have remote attendance. You can watch these on Zoom later, or not Zoom, sorry, YouTube. So even if you can't make it, I mean, I'd encourage you to still kind of stay plugged in and know what's happening, so you stay within the processes. So when you come back, when you're able to come back, you have an awareness of that, so.
So I would open it up to anyone that would like to come up to the podium and maybe talk about the committee formation as well as the topics.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a copy of a letter that I wrote in January of 23 to the 2 sanitation agencies in Coos Bay and North Bend, Less Sanitation and Coos Bay Sanitary. And I copied both Mayor Jessica Ingleke and Mayor Joe Benetti on the letter. And I just thought it was a really great way to take a first step around garbage in our community. May I leave a letter? I only have 6 copies.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. So I won't read the whole letter. I'll just touch on the highlights. And then I do have to be excused to return back to work. Oh, yes, of course. So this letter I wrote in January of 23. And basically, I just addressed the service providers and thanked them for the service they provide to our communities. I was writing the letter in hopes of eliminating, or at minimum, reducing the amount of garbage that is left behind as a result of trash days. And I stated that I realize the drivers are not responsible for customers not bagging their trash, and I'm just hoping a solution can be put in place at the customer's expense. So I included a few photos that's on the back side of the letter, and I suggested perhaps drivers can just maintain a log. I understood from speaking with both agencies that citizens do sign an agreement when they sign up for trash service that they will bag their trash and close their lids. And of course, we know that crows can do a lot of damage. So basically, I suggested that perhaps when a customer signs up for service, that the agreement is produced for them either in an email or some other form, rather than just when they sign electronically to get their service or over the phone. And so there would be a need to monitor that. Either perhaps the driver could monitor. And so the amount of trash strewn about our beautiful towns, it just makes the area look unkept and dirty. It clogs our sewers. And I realize people litter and homeless litter is a large problem for us too, but I'm really just focusing on trash day remnants. I watched as trash spills from containers after dumping, and then the birds pulling it apart when the lids are not closed. So I don't have all the answers. I just hoped at a minimum households can be held accountable. Perhaps it's a simple letter to remind people of the requirements. Closing lids and bagging trash seems so simple. Dreaming of a trash-free community. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's probably something we can easily remind people of through our newsletter that we have.
I'll look forward to following you all, but I do have to get back to work now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Can I also just comment to that?
Sure.
Which is that, I think beautification starts with participation. And, I think I heard someone in the audience talk about how she goes around town and picks up trash. That's been a new hobby of mine as well. And I think there's a role for all of us to play there, and a role for this committee to spread that word that beautification starts with participation and goes along with that see something, say something, but also see something, do something.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Sure, come on up. I'll need you to, if you can come up to the podium and speak into the mic.
I can speak real loud.
Well, yeah, they just, yeah.
I'm sorry, it's
And just,
hard for me.
again, I know you all introduced yourself, but if you
No
could just
problem.
state your name again.
Calvin Strings, Chairman, Eastside Neighborhood Watch. And in response to what she just spoke about, I have several neighbors that spew trash everywhere, every week. And the biggest thing is not closing the lid on the trash can. So I've contacted the less trash or sanitary company and got, well, there's nothing we can do. I've done it several times. Again, nothing we can do. Customer just does it. And it does make quite a mess. But I also wanted to say that in the East Side neighborhood, we have a very good group that come to the meeting regularly. We normally have around 15 or 20. We've had as many as 55 in attend at our meeting. And unfortunately, COVID put us back quite a bit. We've had one full year now of watch meetings. I've had a lot of help from the city council, police department, fire department. Officer Coleman has been to our meeting several times. He's going to be there tonight. And what was I going to say here? Just that, you know, I appreciate all of the help that we got from them, because helping, you know, one another, contacting one another, as they said earlier, you guys said earlier, reporting to the police department, very, very important. You have to do that, and you have to know your neighbor, not just next door or one across the street. You need to know everybody on your block, or, you know, the people that live behind you, if there's people behind you. The more you do that, the better off your community is.
So could you kind of give us a brief summary of what you do? You hold meetings.
We have a meeting once a month. I didn't bring it with me, but I've got a whole list of things that Eastside Neighborhood Watch has been involved in, primarily or secondary. We had a lot of input with the new Millicoma School, and the sidewalks and different things that went on with that design. The park, the playground equipment, in assistance with that. Just a lot of different things go on and on and on. We've been in existence for a little over 11 years now, I guess. And in that time, I would say we've been involved in probably close to 100 different community projects.
And how do you see things now versus what you saw when the group began?
We don't have quite the attendance we used to have since COVID, but I'm trying to build that up as much as I can through we're using the Friday update to notify people, Facebook, Nextdoor. I put on Nextdoor that we're having, oh, that was it, a new location. We're back at the East Side Fire Station. First time in 3 years we were able to get back there. And all of these things, you know, we're in the works of getting some flyers set up to pass out. And we put signs up along 6th Avenue and notify people that they're up for a week. So people, you know, driving by can see and say, oh yeah, you know, Thursday night, you know, so.
Does it make a difference, do you feel?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
As far as what you're seeing in the communities and out in the neighborhoods?
That's what I was going to say with on the Nextdoor. Normally I only have 1 or 2 comments on that site, and usually they're from Myrtle Point or Coquille or whatever, not from East Side. But I've had like 10 different responses this month, so a lot of them are from East Side, so that's an improvement. So you just have to keep plugging away at it.
Okay. All right, thank you. And if folks aren't familiar, Nextdoor is a social media app that focuses on neighborhoods. And I think you can go into other neighborhoods and see what's happening. It's a good communication tool to keep up with what's happening in your community as well.
Hi, I'm Jackie Matthews. We live on 4th and Johnson, and I pick up trash. Adopt-A-Block is out of Portland, but it covers the state, and will send you materials that you want for picking up trash, buckets and the grabbers and gloves. I brought a copy of their website printout. If you want to take a picture of it or something, I'll put it on the back table. But people have stopped, city employees have stopped in the trucks and told me I can use the dumpsters by City Hall. McDonald's and Wendy's, since so much of the garbage is often their to-go stuff, I feel quite comfortable using their garbage cans. But other businesses have offered to go ahead and throw it in my dumpster, or throw it in my trash can, so they're very supportive of it. And it's just an easy, Kurt and I bought our house on 4th and Johnson so we could walk everywhere, and so if I pick up trash while I'm walking, that works great. For the see something, say something, I know on our street on 4th, I had noticed there's a wheelchair user on 4th that at a certain block had to get out into the middle of the street because the owner's stuff had grown over. And I looked up on the city webpage, found an email, sent it to somebody. They got back to me like in 2 days. By that next week, the owner had trimmed those hedges, and the person was using the sidewalk again. So I don't know if that number or an email is in the weekly newsletters that are on email, but that would be helpful to just keep reminding us. And Adopt-A-Block, I know I put it on, after one of the parades, there was so much stuff on 4th, and put it on Nextdoor, and people signed up for Adopt-A-Block and started doing it in their neighborhood. I've adopted all of 4th since we live on that, that's, but yeah, I know there's a lot to do, and I wanted to give that promising story of how quick a reaction I got when I did show it, because I'm sure he appreciates it, that he didn't have to go out into the middle of the street anymore. So thanks for your work, all of you.
Sure. It's good information to have.
I would say an easy ad, we can do header or footer with that, let's market it. See something, say something, here's how you do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you, and I applaud you for putting this advisory group together. I think that's imperative that we have that here in this community. I'm wondering, under the umbrella, the Livability Committee umbrella, will that include things like the unhoused, zombie properties, housing shortages, elder care, child advocates, mental health services? Is it going to be an umbrella with all of those topics and more included, or is it more narrow?
I think that we can make it as big as we want or as small as we want. Obviously, we want to be able to tackle the topics and get them. I love to talk about things, and I will talk forever, but I like to get to a solution. And so we have to make sure that when we're bringing topics, that staff has the capacity to manage that as well, because some of that's going to be calling on people like the police or our codes and public works and all of those in our city administration to do. So
yeah, it's a wide term when you talk about livability and belonging. I think belonging is an important component of any committee, any community.
Sometimes people forget that the council and the city doesn't just look after one thing. We look out we address things for people in our community, whether they're housed or unhoused,
Okay.
whether they're educated or uneducated, whether they're poor or they're wealthy. So all of that is part of living in a community, and it is part of the livability. So.
Okay. The last thing I want to say is
Nicole wanted to add something.
I was just going to add, I think those topics are all worthy of talking about, but we might have to recognize that's not work we're going to be able to accomplish, but we have a resource that does that. So what it kind of keys me into is maybe we create a resource page that would include, if you have this challenge with childcare, here is a place you may go. We don't have that solutioning power, but these folks do. And so,
That would
I don't
be
know, did
great.
you guys notice we got a new website? Redesign, this seems like a nice ad. So let's think about, ways that maybe it's resource gathering and we put it in one place. So that's great.
I want to,
That resource gathering might also be pointed at Andrew over here with his role through the homelessness response.
We're currently continually working on our website, and we have different resources on there right now. And I'd recommend that you reach out if you see any sources that we're meeting, and we'll make sure those are placed on there as well.
how many subscribers do you have to the Friday Coos Bay News?
I haven't, I think the last metrics that I've seen, I think we have a little over 5,100 subscribers. And I don't know if discredit's the right language there, but we're part of a nationwide network now. So we have some interesting, people subscribe from other states. Maybe they have family here, but so we've grown exponentially, but it's not necessarily just community that's driven that.
Would it be beneficial to have Andrew's informational website and other
Yeah, we can
organizations'
certainly put that.
websites published in that as a regular thing? And I was thinking about the Adopt a Block website. That might be something valuable to put in that newsletter. The last suggestion I want to make is, I love see something, do, okay, I can't speak, I'm old. See something, say something. I would add data matters to that tagline.
What was
Thank you.
that last part? Data matters. Okay. Anyone else? Joe Monahan?
Joe Monahan, Best Western Hotel in Latalk, Inc. So when you guys first started talking about this Livability Committee, it was, a lot of it I take was drawn out of Martin Luther King weekend, and a lot of trash around Empire kind of tripped it for a council discussion and to bring everyone together. But as I kind of looked at it and I said, well, there was some talks about maybe different laws, different things like that. Where my thing is, we already have laws on books on litter and things like that. One of the things we don't have on our books here in Coos Bay or North Bend is dumpster diving. The businesses are tired of replacing locks on their dumpsters because they get broken off at 5 o'clock after they leave work. And people are going through, throwing all the trash out, looking for that one can, and then 5 minutes later, another person's going through it. The same thing with the residents. We put our trash out at 5 o'clock at night. 2 o'clock in the morning, someone's going through it. So maybe looking at an ordinance prohibiting that. I did a quick online search, couldn't find any in Oregon. Florida and Oklahoma, some cities have it. Because you do look at, the law says the trash is out there, it's for the public unless you have an ordinance against it.
That actually is not the case, and it isn't, it's between you and your garbage provider, even if it's on the street. There was a case, and I'm trying to think who told me about it. That went to, I believe, the Supreme Court, where the ruling came back that is actually illegal for somebody.
Right, but it could be that you put it out there as the property of the trash company and it's against the law to take their stuff. Or work with them like you did with the shopping carts. Same way. Something has to be done. You can't blame me as a homeowner or as a business that I locked my dumpster at 5 o'clock and at 10 o'clock at night someone with bolt cutters cuts that lock. That costs us money.
Exactly.
It's not only the lock, it's the 15 keys we have to provide staff. Our property on the bay, we find trash from businesses downtown. So, somewhere it has to fall back onto the individual doing it and not on the businesses. And I'm afraid that it's going to morph into blaming the business and the property owner when they're doing everything they can.
Right. What I was saying is, I actually had this problem on my block. That's why I looked so heavily into it, is that there was an individual that just went around and he would go, that's what he did, that was his job.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, we all, you know.
And I said, you can't do that, and he told me he could, and it got very aggressive about it. And yes, I don't know why I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning or when he came by, but I was.
Yeah. You know, our security has made them pick up their trash that they've thrown on our property across the street.
But that might be a good topic to look into.
You know, to look into that. And then North Bend, they actually have a form online for a concern. It's right there highlighted in red on their homepage. So that we're not having to call into dispatch for different issues, whether it be a broken sprinkler head in the park or different things like that. And, you know, I lived in across from Oak Street Park. I had a large problem for 2 years around my house. I used that plus calling dispatch. But dispatch has got more important things to do than deal with the trash issue or a broken sprinkler head. So maybe looking at just having that form online.
So I'll share that we don't have a form, but every page on our site has a feedback. If you click that feedback, you will be able to send, and it comes into administration, and it can be any
Yeah, oh yeah, it's just big, bold, red box that says voice of concern or, you know, let us, you know.
It's just every page. So if you leave that page, you wouldn't be able to see that on North Bend, but on our site, every page has a feedback.
See, I didn't, but, you know, letting people know that that's what it's for and getting that information out.
You're saying increase the visibility of the button.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your point, because it has that interplay with an earlier suggestion. That's what we're gonna need, is that dialogue, because I think you were referencing the suggestion that the garbage company charged the owner if their garbage is in the street, whereas your point, it might end up in the street having nothing to do with the owner.
Correct.
So we'll have to wait
If
too.
there's trash outside my dumpster,
Yeah.
it's $5 a bag.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that adds up to a business.
Yeah, I
You
just gotta
know.
pay my garbage bill, but I can see where for you that could get
My,
expensive.
my garbage bill is $1,972
Jeez.
a month. So when you take a look at that and then someone goes and throws trash out
Yeah.
and it's $5 a bag, it adds up.
Oh, yeah.
So, thank you.
May I ask a question? Is there an ordinance for trash diving that we have currently in Coos Bay, or can you explain that to the group that they may not know?
So we don't have an ordinance per se that is directly addressing dumpster diving, as Joe just mentioned. But we have some ways to address some of the things that you have described. Obviously, if they're cutting locks on your property or even the garbage company's property, you've entered into an agreement. You basically have authority over that garbage dumpster or that can or whatever. And if somebody's damaging that, that is still considered a criminal mischief. The problems that we run into is we've got to be able to prove that case. So if it happened at 2 o'clock in the morning, nobody was around, 5 o'clock in the morning, you come out, you see your dumpsters, you know, been tampered with, been damaged, trash all over, or you see it on your bill, the extra charge. It's very difficult for us to work it at that point because we have no idea who would have done that at 2 o'clock in the morning. There's some ways that maybe, you know, businesses can install some camera systems that focus on their dumpsters if that's a problem area. That could give us maybe some tools to help work those types of cases. But most of the time somebody will call us and say, I discovered this and I don't know who did it. Obviously, if an officer's in the area and they see somebody in somebody's dumpster, we can address that to some degree. As Stephanie, I think you were referring to, it is kind of like an agreement between the owner and the garbage company. And so if I, as the owner of that, I hold that contract, I don't care if somebody's going through my dumpster, then law enforcement just can't just pull up and say, hey, you're not supposed to be in somebody's dumpster, because it's not really public property, it's private property. And so we have just some things that we would probably really want to get down into the weeds on how we address this type of an ordinance. And then we have to, it comes down to resources. I mean, we got to have the resources to be out and dealing with
I know you had the
ordinances.
Neighborhood Watch program
Property Watch, yeah, and Cart Watch now, yeah.
And that helps, but, you
Yeah.
know, they can't be everywhere, but, you know, if they're driving down my street at 2 o'clock in the morning and they see someone going through someone's trash can,
Yeah,
you know, even though that that trash can they're just starting to go into, you know, and they haven't thrown everything out, but 3 houses up, everything's scattered.
yeah,
You can't prove they did it,
yeah.
but you can stop, you know, stop them from going through the rest, I guess.
I definitely think it's worthy of a conversation and kind of getting a little more down into the weeds on how we would deal with something like that. Every new thing we add, we've got to also be able to have the resource to manage it and enforce it, or else we get frustration that, hey, we have this ordinance, but it's never being addressed. And so we have to balance things as well. It's maybe where neighborhood watch groups come into play. Could be very effective on being out and about at times and maybe preventing some of this stuff as well. So, yeah, thanks.
Do we have anyone else that wanted to come up to the podium? We have about 17 minutes, and I want to make sure we get to the time.
Okay.
So,
Well, I think I'm sitting here and I'm trying to decide if this is something I would like to be a part of. And like when we're talking about garbage and folks going into dumpsters, I'm struck by like, every behavior is either a strength or an unmet need in our community. And if people are dumpster diving, clearly they need something, whether it's like money from cans. So like I'm interested in this committee if what we're doing isn't about blaming other people, but is about figuring out see something, do something. Could South Coast Equity Coalition adopt a business that happens to regularly and agree that like we'll come clean up the trash every week or something, and maybe we get a discount at that business once a month for something? Like, I'm interested in solutions that are very like people, grassroots based. I think like talking about if you put an ordinance in place and then you have to enforce it and you can't enforce it because it's kind of impossible, like that is not the conversation I'm super here for. But if there's creative solutions we could try, I dip my toe in the water. So I guess I'm curious, how is this committee defining livability, and who isn't here right now? Because I feel like this is very connected to folks who are houseless, and I don't see, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if any of us have had that experience currently, and I want to make sure that those voices are here. So that's all.
Historically, we did have folks on the committee who had been homeless or were homeless, but good for them, not helpful for us. A lot of them got jobs and did better. Yeah. So, we don't end up with the same homeless folks on the committee, and sometimes we have to find new peers, but it's for good reasons. Like, I think one of them had been a client of mine, and they joined, and they got a job as a CNA and moved somewhere they made lots of money doing it. But, yeah.
And I think that part of the reason that we're at this junction is you're right, we don't want to play the blame game, but we need to get to a solution. And you don't always think about those kinds of opportunities. So that's why I think it's important that we have a wide array of people that have different perspectives on what could be effective, what might work. Because it doesn't always have to be enforcement.
Hi, my name's Mike Powder. I live in Coos Bay. I was attracted to this meeting because it was about livability. What I did last year, we took a trip in our RV and we went across country because I was looking for a place that was livable. And how do I define a place that's livable? And that is where I can walk out of my house, walk down to the grocery store, come back, walk my dog without getting harassed, without getting run over, or the other works. Then I got into cycling, to riding a bike. Coos Bay is probably one of the most dangerous places on the planet for riding a bike. That needs addressing. I live in Empire. I used to ride down to the market. I did all my grocery shopping for about a year. But every other time I came so close to death, it was ridiculous. Ocean Boulevard is a speedway. What bike infrastructure there is a bit of paint somewhere. It's definitely a high-stress area. So what it is Coos Bay is becoming a car-dependent society. Everywhere you look, we got cars. Right through downtown, we basically got 4 lanes of traffic coming through our downtown on one road, 4 lanes going the other way. That's 2 lanes of parking, 2 lanes of traffic, trucks, everything coming down. I think the thing is we need to work on getting people out of their cars, getting people walking, working on better sidewalks, get more people active. I do think protected bike lanes are needed because the roads are a dangerous place. Cars are now 4 tons. They can go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. And those cars constantly do it. Even through Empire, they do it. And it's not fun being on a bike, even in a bike lane where they're going inches away from you. So when it comes to livability, I think the car situation, Coos Bay is starting to look like one big parking lot. You know, I mean, yeah, we need parking, but all the studies I've done is when they get rid of parking, businesses actually prosper. More people come down, more people get out of their cars and come down. Newmark has become like a drive-through restaurant paradise, and try riding a bike on that street there. And now where Newmark meets Broadway, they're putting in a convenience store, gas station, whatever it is, and that's on the bike route. You don't want to ride your bike in those areas. You ride on the pavement, which is not the best thing to do. It's probably illegal too, to a degree. But anyway, that's my thing on livability. I think those things need addressing. Our streets, our sidewalks. Public transport too. I was going to take a bus before I broke my hip this Christmas, but I was going to take a bus to see what it was like to take a bus. But when I go to Walmart, it seems like that is the downtown center for the busing system. And I see people getting out of the bus in the middle of a parking lot, rainy days, on crutches and in wheelchairs, and having to go all the way through the parking lot to get into Walmart. You know, that's not a public transit system. When I was down in Key West, I saw where the bus went right up to the front doors of stores and dropped people off. You know, it's remarkable. It's everywhere you go, you can see better examples of how to do things. You know, I'd recommend take a trip to San Luis Obispo and see how it's done down there. Really top notch. Here, everything is the automobile. And like I say, it would be nice if you could go from downtown Coos Bay all the way to Charleston safely on a bike. I think tourists would love it. There are people that have, you know, I've been around the campsites on Arago, you know, a big one on the water. I see people with bikes on their RVs. They don't take them off their RVs, you know, because there's nowhere to go. It's too dangerous.
Well, you would be interested to know. Did you want to elaborate on the Parks Commission and the subcommittee?
Sure. So we council, recently had a conversation around this and expanded the Parks Commission to include a new position on that was really focused on this element, you know, creating walkability and bicycling around the community. I mean, it's helpful to know that our transportation plan includes elements that require us to look at how we can add that in. It just hasn't maybe been the focus that we recognize as necessary. So we do have a dedicated individual who's cheering on bicycles. So
I have been on my bike around every square inch of this town. There's nothing that I feel comfortable riding my bike on. Some of the infrastructure I think has been put together is absolutely dangerous. One thing that's really sort of irritated me is the ODOT have been, they're spending $40 million in our county on ramps on the end of sidewalks. Sometimes they're putting in ramps on sidewalks that don't even go anywhere. Or if you get onto the sidewalk, you walk into a telephone pole. You know, and each of that's, you know, I think
yes,
Coos.
and unfortunately, that's a state function.
It is.
We are getting close to running out of time, so.
Sure, okay.
Unless you had anything
One
else
little last thing too, what disheartened me a lot too is down there by Fars when you come north on 101, you got you got a painted bike lane. Then you got a little sign that directs cyclists into the traffic because the city or somebody has painted out the old bike lanes. You know, they removed bike lane down there. And I talked to the state and they were surprised that had happened. But I think that needs to be addressing. Because if you're on a bike and all of a sudden you find out you got no bike lane, the sign says, join that log truck on the highway. Spare me. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that also brings up that we're going to want to watch history as well for the region and look at what we've done that worked, some of the things that haven't, and maybe there is a way we can do it better because once upon a time, this was a parking structure and all of downtown was a walking district and it flopped. That's why this is City Hall now. So we'll also want to look at what we've done what worked, what didn't. Maybe there's a way we can do it better, but it doesn't always work.
Counselor Stevens, did you have anything to add?
Well, I love bikes and I love walking, and I appreciate, Mike, your comments, and I guess I would just also add that we can't address everything in the Livability Committee, but I also appreciate Laura's comments about defining what the Livability Committee wants to accomplish, and maybe what we want to accomplish as our first, second, and third goals are different from our fourth, fifth, or sixth goals. And I do think it's important to stay focused on solutions, and that we do have a lot of really great nonprofit and community-based organizations out there working on a lot of the issues being talked about. And so how do we incorporate their voice and make sure that we're utilizing resources in our capacity to the best use?
Thank you. All right, and we're gonna have to be real quick if we're gonna finish up by.
Thank you
1
so
o'clock.
much. Boy, this guy, whatever he said, ditto. I have 2 coffee cup
This
ideas.
is
that are-
Dean, right?
Yeah, Dean Lundy from Empire. I have 2 great coffee cup ideas. I thought this was a kind of a casual meeting and a positive thing. I can pick up trash. I cleaned up the hollering place. I cleaned up the whole area there. I have a 15-year coffee cup idea for the bayfront. We're talking walking paths, things to make people livability. We talked about the Sawmill Trail along. I own the 900 feet of waterfront down there, the old Union Oil Dock, which I'm working on. I've got a guy surveying the whole railroad track area all the way from the new Planet Fitness thing across the street, which is a flat cat street, all the way to the new plaza.
Make sure you talk
in
into the
town.
microphone, Dean, so that we.
To the new plaza downtown. And it would be so easy, and I'll put everything I have at it, if the railroad and the port and the city would allow us. The city is working on the tide gates. Right now, we're working on that thing 5 feet. I've got a guy that's drawn the whole half mile, and it would be the most beautiful walking path. When I grew up on the San Francisco Bay, it was a dump. The Berkeley Flats and stuff, tires and stuff. And you go down there now, sometimes it takes somebody from somewhere else to see the beauty. You go down there now, it's glassnose. You can walk all around the bay, women with strollers all around, even through the military base. This river and this town is like a fairy tale town.
We're
The
down
way
to
that
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So-
anyway.
So you're looking at increased walking paths?
A sidewalk along the bay.
Yep.
And also, if anybody, I want to offer a gang, a Saturday gang for dogs to come down to the hollering place and run your dog. Their dogs need love too, and I love dogs. Okay.
All right,
Connect
thank
the
you.
Coast idea.
So we're running short on time. I did want to ask how the folks on the podium here, as well as our people in the audience, about the time for this meeting. We just went with the noon because this is when the committee met in the past, but what are your thoughts? You like the daytime? Do you like it, or would you prefer later in the afternoon?
I know that it's a problem for some working people, but at least at noon, they have this lunch break. You can see people keep leaving because they're got to get back to work. But there is at least that opportunity, or I'm open to nighttime if it works for everybody.
Okay. Did everybody in the audience feel comfortable with this time frame? Yes.
Please keep it right where you got it.
Okay, that's good to know. All right. So, that being said, Major? You can give the applications to Christine. I will ask that question. Do you feel like we need to expand this any further, maybe more citizen involvement, or do you feel comfortable with placing people on and then having people participate from the audience? Joe?
I think with your makeup of the committee, put it out in the Friday update and ask for any businesses. You know, I don't know if I live in North Bend, but I manage 2 properties in Coos Bay. You know, but there are business owners that live in Coos Bay that, you know, may want to be on the committee and kind of fill out, or maybe someone from the chamber.
All right.
And I guess I might also just add, if there's a way to like have this happen again, like an after work time, like we're all saying we works because we're here. I don't want to make life more complicated, but I will. Like, if there's a way to do this again in the evening, give people a chance to come and like see what they say. Maybe nobody shows up, but at least then we like put that out there.
Major Kaufman? Oh, James?
This is on Zoom and YouTube, correct? Okay, so you can watch it at your leisure. Pop a little popcorn, that's what I usually do for city council.
Yeah. All right, anyone else? John? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I have a suggestion on how things like that could occur. And I don't want to take the lead, but the neighborhood coalition could be the avenue for people to meet at work and discuss their
So what the suggestion was is perhaps to make the evening portion work without having a structured meeting like this, is that we put people from the neighborhood watch groups or representatives from each of the communities in Coos Bay, Inglewood, Empire, East Side, and they take that back and maybe have that at a meeting in the evening. John?
Had a thought. Could we spend a little time, before we jump immediately into problems, which we kind of did, talking about the different components of livability? I think that might help us focus. And then I'd like to have us also think about not just bandages to problems, but the underlying causes of why. And those may be beyond a lot of our ability to handle, but I think would be very helpful if we could identify some of those underlying causes.
Okay. So perhaps at the next meeting we focus on the components of livability.
I'd like to see that.
Okay. So we had this structured to meet once a month, and so we would meet, what is that, this is the third or fourth? It's the fourth Thursday. So the last week of the month on a Thursday at noon, and our next topic would be to discuss the components of livability and maybe some underlying causes, and then work on identifying some of the problems. Does that work?
Nicole promised lunch too.
I did not. I did not.
No,
the
she
city
didn't.
of Coos Bay does generally not offer lunch because that would be you folks paying for lunch.
Paying
So
for
let's
your
think
own
about
lunch.
that logic.
Anyone else have any input? Any ideas, suggestions? Yes, correct.
And I guess other than we're trying to make this consistent and something you could count on so that we can get the public input, I guess we could always consider that we do this until it doesn't work, and then when it makes sense to change that date and time, we do that until it doesn't work.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else to come before this committee, then I will go ahead and adjourn.
Thank you for bringing us
Appreciate you all
together.
coming out.